Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hometown Conversations. My name is Roman Blemke, and I am joined today again by my amazing co-host, Jill Springer. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, this is, it's a Friday, so I always feel like it's pretty good when it's a Friday.
Absolutely.
And, I get to sit here and do this with you, so that makes it even better.
It's a great day.
Right? So I got to thinking the other day, talking to ourselves as we often do,
yes.
Right? And you're going through some stuff. And I got to thinking, how do you know when you're being completely authentic?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a really good question. Well, since you were talking to yourself about it and you just sprung this one on me, I'm going to let you go first.
It feels funny because I sprung it on you, which I'm using air quotes because we've talked about it already, but I like how you just threw it back on me. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So it feels right. I think I feel like I'm being most authentic. I feel like it's when I'm really believe in something, mm-hmm. And I'm sticking up for that point, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I always feel like I'm pretty authentic when I'm around my friends.
Yep.
When I'm around you, obviously, I feel pretty authentic. I really try to make sure that people are getting me.
Yes.
Like I'm not putting on a front. I'm not trying to make things up. I'm not trying to just be, somebody, right?
Right.
I'm just trying to be who I am. What about you?
So it's interesting. I think I took a little bit of a different approach to the question. I think I interpret it as what are the indicators to me that I'm being authentic. I agree with you. I feel like I'm pretty authentic in all areas of my life, but sometimes I'm doing a job. Yeah. Not that I'm unauthentic or inauthentic, but I'm doing something. To me, I can tell when I'm being most authentic when I'm not analyzing or thinking about what I'm saying or what I have said. First instance that came to mind when you asked this question was when you and I met my best friend Amy and her husband Matt for dinner a few weeks ago.
Yeah. And
we talked and we laughed, and at no point did I analyze or think or process one thing I was saying.
Right.
I just talked. Again, just like what you said, I feel very authentic when I'm with you. I don't analyze what I'm saying. I don't think about what I've said. Otherwise, I feel like I'm a relatively authentic person in most of my life, but I do sometimes worry about what I'm saying or what I've said. But there's those moments in time.
Yeah.
And I think it's with the people I feel the most comfortable with.
Yeah. Well, it's always fascinating to kind of sit back and think about, like, you have your shower thoughts and stuff like that. You're like,
yeah.
I wonder. Sometimes it's like, well, I wonder what this is. And then other times it's kind of deeper. And that's where I went with this one. I'm like, gosh, I don't feel like I'm putting on a front ever. I feel like I'm always trying to just be who I am. Mm-hmm. But I thought it'd be an interesting question to start with. So, it's a question for the viewers or the listeners, I guess is what we'd call it right now until we put this up on YouTube as well. But, for yourself, everybody out there, when do you feel at your most authentic? Mm-hmm. And what is that indicator that kind of sets it out for you? So for those of you guys who are joining us for the first time, we started this podcast with the idea that in each community, there are hundreds of stories that go untold. And our hope is with this podcast is that we can help bring those stories to light. So we've had two shows now, right?
Yep.
This will be our third show.
This is our third.
First one, it was just you and I. Then it was Val last week.
Yep.
And now it's just you and I again. So yeah. I'm looking forward to this conversation here today because I think it has the potential to spur some conversation, not just between you and I, but also, from our listeners.
It's a really good topic today.
Like that too.
So
remember when there was so much hope and optimism going into 2020? Remember that?
Sort of.
Yeah. It was so long ago. I remember people making jokes about how this year was going to be the year that everything was brought into focus. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking how bad of a dad joke that was at the time. But in making a joke about how 2020 was going to be their best year, it was kind of like, cringeworthy. Unfortunately, that changed pretty quickly.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it did.
So over the past 8 months, I've had a lot of time to think about stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like one of those things was just how much I miss events and the things that are here in Hutchinson that we maybe haven't gotten to do, or that maybe it's even an appreciation for things that I took for granted earlier. So all of those things that we were used to doing that maybe we took for granted, I thought, would be a good conversation today. So this week's episode is going to be sort of a gratitude focused in some words. So in other words, what are your favorite things about Hutchinson? And what are those things that you cannot wait to get back to?
Oh, I love this question.
Yeah, we tried really hard to narrow it down, each of our thoughts just down to 4. So you have 4, I have 4.
Yes.
So in a bit later in the podcast, we're going to hear from some of our listeners about their favorite things about Hutchinson as well. Did you see one of our listeners listed 10 things on our Facebook page?
That's fantastic.
I know. I was like, I had a hard time narrowing it down to 4. You narrowed your 4 down really quickly. I didn't. It took me a little bit longer. I just love so many things about where we live and stuff like that. So I've talked a lot. So I'm going to let you kick this off and have you go first. So what's your first one?
Okay, so anybody who knows me is not going to be surprised that my first answer to what I love about Hutchinson and what I really look forward to getting back to is a little bit centered around my son.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to go back to the Hutchinson Aquatic Center.
Oh, yeah.
That is one of those places that if you didn't live here, you travel half hour, 2 hours to go to a place like our aquatic center. 3 or 4 water slides, a zip line, 2 diving boards. Like, my son and I spend countless hours there in the summer. And the fact that it's right here in Hutchinson means that we can go for a couple hours, have a snack there, get back in the pool, go home, come back, right? Like, we can pace it out however we want to because it's right here in our community. It's clean. The lifeguards are great. Everybody's friendly. Like, it is one of our favorite things to do in the summer. And I really hope that the summer of 2021, we get to go back to the Hutchinson Aquatic Center. I love that place.
I know. I was so excited when the aquatic center actually opened up here. You know, before it was like, we just had a pool.
Yep.
And that's fine.
Yep.
You know, if you're going to go do swimming lessons and stuff like that. But we too, you know, I used to take the kids to, you know, we went to like Silver Lake and
Yes.
we went to, you know, Winthrop. We did all these places where they all had, it felt like everything.
Yes.
And I kept thinking to myself, that's like the only thing we're missing here.
Yes.
Now I've had a couple other thoughts around that too. Like, you know, you and I have traveled to Ramsey Park down in Redwood Falls, and I was like, ooh, that'd be great here too. But
Right.
We'll talk about parks later.
Well, and what's particularly exciting, just one last note on the
Yeah.
aquatic center, is my son is now getting old enough that I can be like, okay, off you go, honey. Mommy will be in the
Yeah.
lazy river for the next 2 hours.
You know what's really fun? Speaking of like the lazy river there, I love going down there in the mornings. And I know one of our listeners does too. And we've hung out there before. And walking backwards in the lazy river is a legitimate workout.
I've heard it's intense. I
It's
have not
awesome.
done it because the idea of getting in a swimming pool at 6 a.m. has never been particularly appealing to me. But maybe I need to try it this summer because
No.
I've heard it's a legit workout.
No, it's absolutely legit. And I remember talking to somebody, like a friend of mine, about it once. He's like, "Oh, you're going to go down there with, you know, with all the old people." And I'm like, well, no, this is awesome. I said,
Yeah.
you need to go down and do this.
Absolutely.
This is not like a senior workout. This is a legitimate workout. So if you've never done that, like Hutch people, if you've never gone to the aquatic center, like I feel like I'm maybe putting this up as a hazard for myself because I'll get down there and be like 100 people trying to get in there next time.
Right.
But seriously, if you haven't like signed up to go down to the aquatic center and go through and do like the fitness stuff in the morning, it's legit. It's worth doing. So get yourself a pass to the aquatic center so you can go, you know, work out with all of us. It's super fun.
You let me know how the 6 a.m. workout goes. I'll let you know how the 4 p.m. lazy river goes. Deal?
It seems like there's something to that, right?
Right. It
Yeah.
sounds like I'm the winner.
Yeah,
actually.
probably so. So, okay. So my first one is the JC Water Carnival.
Yes.
So I kind of have a story behind that as well. But for those of you guys who don't know, you know, the Water Carnival started in 1942. So it's been around forever. It's one of the longest community festivals that is in the state, which is great. Multi-event celebration. You've got the Run by the River, the Medallion Hunt, the Miss Hutchinson pageant, that kind of stuff. So
Parade.
The Grand Day Parade is probably one of the biggest parades that we have in the state. So there's just a lot of things that go on there. For those that know me, I had some personal experience with the Hutchinson Water Carnival for about 5 years. I got to photograph the Miss Hutchinson program, and the amount of stuff, the amount of work that goes into putting that program on is impressive. They start working on it in January. I will say in January, they will probably tell me that it starts work immediately after the program's over for next year.
I think they give themselves like a week off and then they start next year.
It feels like it right away. Now, as a photographer, I always got involved later. I started getting involved around March, something like that, as we started getting candidates, that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I'll say that I love about it, number one, they have a rich tradition, right? You talk to anybody in town, it feels like anyway, and they've been a part of Water Carnival at some point in time. Yeah. Maybe that was just participating in an event. Maybe it was family day. Maybe it was run by the river. Maybe they were a past candidate. Our friend Michelle Neese, she was a past candidate. I had no idea until I started doing it. She's like, oh yeah, I was part of that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many people that were involved in it, right? So they've got this rich tradition. They've got a sense of community that they bring to it, which is great as well. The other thing that I'll just kind of throw into it is when you're a part of Water Carnival, and again, they're always looking for volunteers, that kind of stuff. The JCs themselves can't put it on. There's just not enough. It's such a big event. I know a lot of people think that it's put on by the city, but it's not. It's put on by like a group of people that are incredibly dedicated to pulling this event off.
Yeah,
and every year it's great.
They need a lot of help from the community. It's huge.
Absolutely. The one thing I'll say about that is when you're looking for volunteers, I think one thing that every group that's looking for a volunteer, it's a hard thing to commit your time to something, right? The one thing that I'll say about the JC's Water Carnival, that particular event, is when I was a part of it, I felt as I was part of the family, quote unquote, right? Like everybody kind of gets wrapped in and it becomes an all-encompassing event. And the program starts on, Monday, technically, at Pie in the Park, but it goes on all year long. And you really do feel like you're kind of wrapped in as this big group. So if there's anybody ever out there looking to get involved in some sort of program or some sort of volunteer effort, the Hutchinson JCs and the JC Water Carnival in particular is one where you could really dedicate some really good time.
And I think it's important to note you don't have to dedicate an entire week of your time.
No.
You don't have to help plan every event that happens.
Nope.
You feel part of the family even if you just take on one small piece of it, and they're more than happy to have you. So you could volunteer anything from 2 hours of your time to 20 hours to more, but it doesn't have to be an all-consuming time commitment for you to really feel like you've made a difference.
Right. I think that's with every
with
volunteer
any volunteer
organization, but I have a soft spot in my heart for the JC Water Carnival because of being involved for 5 years. It got to be a little bit intense as a photographer by myself, so that ended up being what it was. But I made some great friendships through that. I'm still friends with some of the candidates. I see them around town. We wave, say hi. That group is absolutely a family, and I personally am proud to have been a part of that at one point in time in my life.
That's really
cool. Great. So
and you got to document the memories, which I think that's so valuable for people. But we could have a whole different podcast about you documenting memories, and we probably will at some point. But for today,
So your second one.
Okay, so my second one. So I think all of us at any point could think of a time where, we got a couple friends together and we went to the cities and went out to eat or went to a concert or went to a play and made a night of it. But one of my favorite things about Hutchinson is when you are able to go to an event that is benefiting a nonprofit and you spend the same amount of money that you would if you went into the cities or just made a night of it, whatever you're doing. But you're right here in town, you're benefiting a nonprofit, you get to see all kinds of people that maybe you only see a few times a year. I'm thinking about things like the Hutchinson Health Foundation Gala. Yeah. There's a hospice benefit. One of my favorites is the Center for the Arts Gala. You get to dress up, you get to go out with friends, you get to eat a great meal, bid on some silent auction things, feel like you're making a difference, but still just really having a fun social evening with friends. Yeah. Lots of people from town come. You see all the community support. And it's just a fun night out, like right here in your own community. It feels good. You have fun. Like those are some of the things I like. I look forward to clicking on the Facebook link and buying those tickets again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those types of events. You mentioned some really great ones with the Hutch Health Foundation, the gala, the hospice event that they have, of course, I'm on the board, heading on the board for there too, and I can't remember, Share and Care, I think is what
Share
it's
and
called.
Care
Yeah.
for Hospice.
So
Yep.
it's, when you're doing these podcasts, it's like your brain is thinking like 4 steps ahead.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, but I have to remember what the name of that is. But it's so funny. But a couple of the other events that I would throw in there too, like Taste of Hutchinson,
Yes.
Taste of the Holidays, the Chamber's annual event.
Absolutely.
Like, remember when we did the annual event for the Chamber a couple years ago, and they did like an 80s prom?
Oh my God, it was so much fun.
That was so much fun. We danced all night long. It was super fun for everybody
Yep.
that went. And
there was a prom king and queen. I used more Aquanet that night than I have in 20 years combined. It was fantastic. Purple eyeshadow.
yeah, perfect stuff,
Yeah.
right?
And
Yeah.
then last year we played the floor-sized Monopoly game.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun.
So there's a lot of other events here too. The saluting the veterans one too.
Yes.
That name is slipping my mind. Tim Burley's group puts that on. That's a really good one to be involved in as well. So yeah, the events that we have here, Ducks Unlimited, I've heard is really big as
Yep.
well. So like there's all those, and we're going to miss a ton of them.
Yeah.
I have a story that it's very short, and then we'll kind of move on to the next thing. But like I had a friend, he lives down the Rochester area, and he came here one time. I don't know, it's like 5 years ago or something like that. And he's like, he picks up one of those trifolds that the Chamber puts on the tables all around
Yep.
town, right? And he picks it up, he's looking at it, he's like, I can't believe the amount of stuff you guys have
Oh,
going
it's
on here.
fantastic.
Like, how are you ever at home? And I'm like, it was kind of fun to hear, because that is one of the things that I've always thought has been really great about Hutch is if you want to get involved and do things around the community, you absolutely can.
Yes.
So I think
And your
that's really
calendar
cool.
can fill up really quick.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It
So
is
I look
awesome.
forward to like that again.
Yeah.
Like getting tickets, getting dressed up. Sometimes they're themed, sometimes they're not. But it's just always fun. Always a good time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my second one is the trail system that we have here in town. As many people that are listening to this podcast may or may not know, I'm an avid bike rider. I always want to say
Bicyclist, perhaps?
Well, bicyclist is the right word. I was going to say cyclist, and then people are like, "Oh, he rides a Harley." No.
Oh, yeah, I can
No.
see. Mhm.
So I always struggle with that word, but I love riding my bike. And one of my favorite things to do is hop on the bike either early in the morning or late afternoon and go hit the trail through town. Number one, first and foremost, the city of Hutch has about 35 miles of paved trails in town. That's a considerable amount.
Yes, it is.
So we've got that. There's 16 miles of bike-friendly streets that you can ride on as well. So we've got that. For the long-haul biker, the Loose Line Trail, there's 63 miles that you can ride from here to Cosmos, or you can ride from here to Plymouth.
I've even heard of people riding from here to Minneapolis, but I don't know how well those people are mentally.
Are you saying something about me?
No, I think you did that.
Yeah,
but
I did.
I mean, yeah.
I did it with a friend of mine, Todd, and we had a great time. The interesting thing is that we have two really great trails that are like one here, and then that's one that's really kind of close, and that's the Dakota Trail, right? So one of the neat things is that you can ride from here to downtown Minneapolis to the Arch Bridge, Stone Arch Bridge. So you can ride to there.
Yep.
Turn around, ride back to Wayzata, and then hop the Dakota Trail and ride a different trail almost back to Hutchinson. I think it gets to like Lester Prairie, somewhere right around there.
Yeah.
And then you ride up again to Winstead and come back home. So you could do like 100-mile loop in a day if you really wanted to. Now,
And that's cool. I know I joke, but actually your stories from that have been phenomenal and
Todd and I
something you'll never forget.
Oh no, Todd and I had a great time doing it. I don't think Todd rode bike again for another year after that. So, it did take a lot out of you, but that whole thing, and I look at like just people using the trail.
Yes.
There are times when I get out and there are days when I get out and there's nobody on the trail and it's just smooth sailing. And then there are other days the trail is packed.
Oh, I
and
love
I
those
love
days.
those days,
Yes.
right? You go past people just walking along the river. Maybe they're on rollerblades. They're on a
See
bike.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's parks all along the
Yep.
trail as well. So there's just all sorts of really cool things to do along the river. And, there's all sorts of things that I love about that trail. But riding my bike is one of those. And we really do have a great situation for riding bike down here.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
you
do.
guys bought new bikes this year. And,
Yep.
And, your son really likes hitting the trail and going to the parks.
Well, he loves them, and his new bike, he can just fly on that thing.
Yeah.
So that was a good investment.
Yeah. So we're off to a great start. But let's hear from some of our listeners about their favorite things about
I can't
Hutchinson.
wait.
My name's Ashley Gabbert. I moved to Hutchinson back in 2017. At the time, my then fiance, now husband, was looking for work. He had just graduated nursing school, and he had done a clinical in Glencoe, so we were looking there because we both wanted to live in a small town, but I said we could move to the closest place with the Target. So that's how we ended up in Hutchinson. Nothing against Glencoe, but I'm just really happy that we're here. I wouldn't have it any other way. It might be corny, but I really do this. We'll pull into town after a weekend away, and you can ask my husband literally every time. I just say, I love this town. I love living here. I am so happy to be home. And that's the best way to describe it. It's just home. It's big enough city that you feel like you have all of the amenities that you need, but it's also got the small town feel. I feel like I can really be enthralled in the community, and I can be doing things and be making a difference, and that's a fun feeling for me. I honestly love being involved, and there's so much to do. There is the parks and the trails, and Parks and Rec has adult activities, so I get out and play volleyball and softball and all of these opportunities to just be engaged, young professionals groups and volunteer opportunities. There's so much good happening in this town. And I often brag about the little things that maybe are just second nature now, but when they come and pick up 2 big items of trash on the side of the curb, or they come and do the leaf pickup, and I see, our family members are just trying to stuff all these leaves into bags in the towns they live. It's just little things like that make a big difference, and it's super silly, but just those little touches. I guess for right now, obviously, our town looks a little different with COVID, and it's been tough on everybody. I would say I am looking forward to a lot of things when COVID is over, but honestly, just being able to have a sense of comfort again and less worry, and to see family and friends and have them over to my house and just relax with each other. I think I'm looking forward to that most. But we make the most of what we can do right now. So I have been diving into projects and doing as much as I can, keeping a safe distance from others, and still trying to live our lives and have fun. So got to stay positive. You can't just waste a year or more of your life.
Hi, my name is Kayla Zaidema, and I have to say my favorite thing about living in Hutchinson is the sense of community. I was born and raised here, but the older I got, the more I got involved, and I've just had such a great opportunity to meet amazing people, and so many of them have the same goal, just to keep making our community great, keep adding amazing assets, and it's just been really wonderful to see the community continue to grow, and it's been great to be able to be a part of that too. One of the things I am definitely looking forward to getting back to are events. I look forward to the fact that we're going to get to hopefully gather here again soon with a lot of the local events, even like River Song and Pottery Festival, and so many of our nonprofits host amazing.
All right, well, those were awesome.
Yes.
I like the aquatic center. That was fun. That we already talked about that too, and everyone else likes that. The amount of water that's around here too, by the way, is more than I expected when I first moved here. Like, there's lakes, a ton of lakes just north of here.
Yeah.
That really work out quite. I mean, they're great for everybody, obviously.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
We heard all sorts of stuff, participating in the community and events and all that kind of stuff. So, farmers market was another one that came up during that conversation. So
I think a really underlying theme, though, is the sense of community.
Yeah.
One of the first things I noticed when I moved here, actually, was how clean the town is, how well kept the town is. There just seems to be a lot of pride.
Yeah.
In individual space. The city takes a lot of pride in its space. It's just a really nice place to live aesthetically.
Yeah.
There's just a good sense of community.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So let's move on to our next two
Yes.
that each of us have. So what was your next one?
So my next one is very appropriate as I look out the window and see the snow everywhere, whether you agree with what's happening outside or not. It is what it is. And one of my favorite things about Hutchinson is every year, I believe it's the Hutchinson Downtown Association puts on like a whole Christmas thing.
Yeah.
There's sleigh rides and Santa, and the lights are up in Library Square, and there's cider and shopping. We've got so many cool shops on Main Street. All the little boutiques and specialty stores that are locally owned. You know the business owners. You know the people that work there. You feel really good supporting them, whether you're doing Small Business Saturday or these little events throughout the Christmas season. It's one of the funner days. I love Christmas lights, all of it. So I don't know that we'll get to do all that this year. But it's something I look forward to in years to come, and I've really enjoyed it in the past, and I know my son has too.
I know that I don't know if they're doing downtown Christmas this year, but that is an amazing event. I know that Small Business Saturday, they're still going to try and pull that off.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have some more information about that in our next podcast,
Yes,
which would be great.
I believe so.
I think we'll be able to talk about that with some certainty as the podcast should be released like the day before Small Business Saturday. So
Yep.
I think we should be okay there. So yeah, that's really great. I love that one. So my next one is something that somebody mentioned on, the listeners here mentioned, what's River Song.
Yes.
So one of the things I love about River Song is obviously the music is one thing. And I think there's a lot of like misconception about what River Song is when it comes to music, because in our heads as people, we hear rock, we hear, pop, we hear, like, we have some associations that go with it. So when you hear the type of music, when you hear Americana, people are going to think, oh, it's a lot of banjos. It's the farthest thing from it.
Right.
There might be a band or two that have some of that in there. I would challenge people to give it a shot. Go down there and see what it is. Listen to the music. I mean, from, local bands to, and what I mean local is like Minnesota to national bands. I remember we had, I shouldn't say we, but like River Song had like, I was there, so it's we, right?
It's we.
But like they brought in somebody from like Ireland a few years ago that was just amazing. There was like a thunderstorm in the background. So like that was happening and this awesome music was happening. Like the experience as a whole was great. It's along the river. So you get people pulling up on pontoons to listen, kayaks, that kind of stuff, which is kind of neat. It's been around for a while, and I think one of the things that was interesting about it that got me piqued initially in it was that Hutchinson itself is built on like music.
Yes.
Right. The Hutchinson brothers, when they came here, that's what they were doing, is touring around the country. And when they settled here and decided this is going to be Hutchinson.
Well,
here.
and not to interrupt, but the music and the beauty of the city, which River Song combines both of those things.
Absolutely.
The Hutchinson brothers were also really taken with the landscape, the river, the beauty.
Yeah.
And River Song encompasses both of those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I really, really love the fact that we have a live music festival local here in town. I just still think that there's people that are missing out on what that can be.
Agreed.
We've had some amazing experiences down there over the years, just listening to the music, the food, the vendors that go down
there's
there.
like food trucks or stands, some amazing food.
Yeah, it's really great. So if you've never really taken a look at it, whatever, go to River Song Music Festival or riversongfestival.org. That's where you can find out a lot more information about it. So, it's been around for a while, and it's one of those things that I love to go to every year.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those things you would travel an hour or 2 or 3 to go, and it's right here.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do travel for music already and have something that is right here along the river, all that kind of stuff. It like checks a lot of boxes.
Exactly.
For me. Yep. So yeah, that's my next one.
So my last one has been brought up a few times already. And part of the reason that I am indicating this is my last one is not necessarily because it's something I look forward to when COVID is over, but something that I've learned to appreciate more because of COVID. I read a great, I don't know if it was a Facebook meme or quote or what it was, but basically it was, you're not stuck at home, you're safe at home. And one of the places that is considered safe right now is outside. And one of the things that has happened naturally because of COVID is that some of the busyness of our life has been removed. And one of the outcomes of that, I think for a lot of people, is sort of a reevaluation of what do we want to be busy with? What do we want to focus on intentionally right now? And so my last thing that I absolutely love about Hutchinson, because it's COVID friendly or not, again, is our parks system, our trails, right? I feel really comfortable taking my 8-year-old son biking, walking, outdoors. We look at nature. We find sticks. Sticks are some really big thing to 8-year-old boys. I don't really know. But there's so many places in town we can go that are fun, that are creative, that are outdoors, that feel safe. It's beautiful here. You mentioned earlier we went down to Ramsey Park in Redwood Falls, and Sam had a blast down there. It's an hour away, right? Yeah. You've got state county parks or state parks in the area that are 15 minutes, 20 minutes away. And then you've got everything that just Hutchinson has to offer. And so we've really, in the last 6 to 8 months, really focused on those things. And what's come of it isn't just enjoyment of the beauty and the nature that we're around, but because we're not distracted by events and things, we're talking about stuff that I wonder if we would have talked about. Yeah. We're discussing things that I wonder if we would have been discussing. And just that slowdown a little bit in life and the ability to focus on what's important and what matters, which is really the health of my family. And then just being able to be outside and enjoy everything that Hutchinson has to offer. I think I would have put it at the top of my list, but I always kind of like to save the best for last. So I think that's my favorite thing about Hutchinson. And we have fully taken advantage of it during COVID and will continue to after.
I think it's funny that you mentioned the parks, because I put a couple of other ones down on my list here just in case we overlapped, because we didn't talk about any of these things.
No, we didn't know what each other's was going to be.
So I wrote parks down too, because we have a lot of them.
So many.
You know how many there are here?
No.
37 parks.
Holy cow.
So
I don't even know if we've been to all of them. We still haven't ever done that challenge where you go to every park in the summer.
Yeah. So there's 37 parks in our park system here. Right? You have South Park. I believe it's one of the oldest platted, purposely platted parks.
In Minnesota, right?
I think
or
it might
the
be
country.
in the country. I think it might be in the country, second to Central Park or something like that.
Sure.
I reached out to Jim Fahey for information, and he's such a busy guy. He didn't have time to reach back out to me, but I'll put it in the comments when I find out about it. But regionally, you talked about, the parks that we have, Stalls, Papenburg, Collinwood, all of those things. We have the adaptive park over at Elks Park, which was great to put that in.
Absolutely.
Veterans Park, one of the better veterans parks I've seen in the state. We've got a lot of that kind of stuff. I also wrote down Sculpture Stroll, because that's part of it too.
It's so cool. And you said something about stalls. Last year, my son and I went over to the Parks and Rec and rented snowshoes for maybe $5 for the weekend.
Right.
And spent the weekend snowshoeing around stalls.
Yeah.
To this day, he claims I almost killed him because I think I made him go on a trail that was maybe a little longer than he wanted to do, but trust me, it was not a near-death experience. But that's just another thing. Not only was the park available to us, but then Parks and Recs gave us the tools we needed to appreciate it.
Yeah, and Parks and Rec, speaking of them too, if you want to use the river as an example, you can go rent kayaks in the summertime. So there's just so many things to do when you talk about the park system here. So we've hit on a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
My last one, I think, is I also didn't rank these at all. I kind of wanted to keep my favorite for the last. And it was something that Bo mentioned in his thing. And that's the people of Hutch, right? We've had this conversation before. You and I have had conversations about this. We're both transplants to the town. I've lived here for about 20 years or so, right around there. I lived in a lot of communities prior to coming here. Being in this business that I am in, senior housing, I moved around a little bit for a while. And one of the things that I used as a judge of whether or not the community was going to be welcoming and all that kind of stuff is, if I was out on my bike and I said hi to somebody, would they say hi back? It's not like we're going to be best friends or anything like that, but would you wave? Hey, how's it going? Whatever. And out of all the communities that I've lived in, and it's 10 or 12 to this point, this town here, Hutchinson, is one of the more friendliest towns I've been a part of. Everybody, hey, how's it going? I've run into people around town that just want to talk, and we put together a biking group where we can go bike around town. People jumped on that right away. I think one of the things that Bo hit on that's really great is that in times of need, this town does really come together and tries to do the right things for a litany of people.
Absolutely.
When times are hard or times are tough, there's a lot of organizations, nonprofits that exist to help that scenario, but there's also the people, and the people make a big difference. I've met some incredible people here in town. Some of my best friends are from this town.
Yes.
We've done a lot of different projects together to try to make your community better, that kind of stuff. So I have a soft spot in my heart for the people of Hutchinson because they've done so much for the community itself. They all seem to really, truly care about not just the town as a whole, but the people who live here as well.
It's interesting because Ashley touched on it too. And, when we started this podcast and we called it Hometown Conversations, I gave that a lot of thought because I think for a good chunk of one's young adult life, home is still where you grew up.
Right.
It's where you went to high school. It's, where your family maybe still lives. And then at some point that may or may not change, right? Home might still always be where you grew up. Or it might change. And I'm not I've lived in Hutchinson a little over 10 years. I suppose if I did the math, I'd maybe be surprised that it's more than that. But at some point, and I don't remember when it was or what it was, but Hutchinson is home to me now. When I say, if somebody said, where are you from? I would say Hutchinson at this point. Yep. And in large part, that has to do with the people here. They're welcoming. There's a place for anyone of any interest. Like Rhoda mentioned, the plays, the arts are very strong here. I'm so thankful to be raising a child here. The school system is phenomenal. It just feels like home.
It does. And I know we've had this conversation too about this city became my hometown probably 11 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. The more I got involved in the community, the more people I met, that kind of stuff. And it's absolutely that way for me right now too. If somebody goes, so where are you from? Where's your hometown? I first say Hutchinson as my hometown. I don't mention Redwood Falls or Waseca or any of that kind of stuff. I used to play that, back in the day. It's always kind of funny. I'm like, so where's your hometown? Hutchinson, Minnesota. Oh, so what year did you graduate? Okay, so if you want to go back that far, now we got to talk about Redwood Falls and we got to get into that. But where I feel home is here.
Well, it's funny you say that. Maybe the reason I transitioned to saying I'm from Hutchinson is because people have at least heard of it. I mean, my hometown, everybody's like, wait, what? Where? Elbow Lake? It's in there, I promise. But no one has ever heard of it.
Oh, that's awesome. So now the conversation doesn't have to stop here.
No.
We'd love to hear from our listeners. Is there something that you love about Hutchinson that we didn't talk about? It was extremely tough for us to narrow this down. So what is your favorite thing about Hutchinson? Leave it in the comments on our Facebook page at Hometown Conversations. We would love to hear your favorites. So Jill, thank you for being a part of this project. One of my favorite things about you is that you push me to try new things. You've supported all the projects and ideas that I have. This podcast simply would not exist without your encouragement. So from myself and all of our listeners, thank you for encouraging those encouraging words every day. Also, a big thank you to all of our listeners. We really appreciate you tuning in. To keep up to date on future podcasts, you can follow us on our Facebook page, Hometown Conversations. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on multiple streams, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We keep adding them to the Facebook page as well as we get added to more streaming services. So if you'd like to be on the podcast or have an idea for an episode, send us a note through Twitter or on Facebook. Thank you to all of you who continue to tune in and listen to our conversations. Have a great week. We'll see you all Thanksgiving week for our next episode.